And now, in studio, bringing his Midwest values from the Show Me State to the land of San Diego. He's a triple threat, licensed as an attorney, mortgage broker, and a top producing realtor who's crushing the competition. Here to deliver you what's happening in the trenches of the market. Your host, Michael Gaddis.
Welcome back to the Michael Gaddis Show on AM 1170 The Answer. I am Michael Gaddis of michaelgaddis.com and frontierloangroup.com. And by the grace of God, my special guest has made it. My special guest today is Brian Andrews of briancandrews.com. He is one of the top litigation attorneys in the entire Southern California, not just San Diego, all of Southern California. And if you have a situation involving a litigation, I strongly suggest you to talk to Brian Andrews of briancandrews.com. Now, thank you for joining me today, Brian.
Thanks, Michael. Thanks for the kind words. Happy to be here.
Now, I know you were running a little close because you had a bunch of fires to put out today because, you know, in the litigation world, that's all it's about. You're like a fireman, aren't you?
I am indeed. I had a gentleman call me this morning whose sale's only 2 weeks away, and we got 2 court holidays between now and the date of his sale. So we're running on the treadmill to get him taken care of.
Nothing like last-minute clients with trustee sales around the corner to, with bank holidays in between to really get your blood moving. Isn't that right?
There's no doubt about it. And if I may, it's probably a good segue to a comment, which is that so many people try to handle these type of fights themselves. And this gentleman's a classic example. And, he, obviously I won't ever use a client's name on the air, but by way of lesson for everybody else who has a situation like this, this gentleman's already taken himself through a bankruptcy, and he probably missed some of the benefits he could have garnered there. And now he's tried to file or start to file his own loan mod applications, which I would also posit most of the time is a mistake. It's far better to seek the help of someone who's an expert like Frontier Loan to help guide you in that process. And now that's going astray on him, he's even was on the verge of trying to file his own lawsuit when wisely he picked up the phone and called me, but to some degree unwisely because it's so late. We will make it in front of a judge and make an effort to get a restraining order and stop that sale. But the lesson for everybody listening is this is not a self-help situation. This is something where you really need some experts who know the ins and outs of the loan modification fight and the ins and outs of a court litigation if you have a piece of property that's distressed or in danger.
Well, I cannot reiterate what Brian said anymore. I mean, it is, there's an old saying, a person who has himself for a client. What is it? What's the old saying? It's
only a fool has himself for a client.
I mean, and that goes through her people too, individuals, because, like Brian said, so many people get involved with bank litigation. If they're in danger of losing their house, they think, oh, well, I can handle this myself. The lender says I don't need anybody's help and I can do this by myself. Yeah, you sure can. And then you'll be calling Brian at 2 weeks before his sale saying, well, they didn't do what they said they were going to do and it didn't work out the way I thought. And then, you're I always say it's like the difference between being proactive and reactive. You could put your head in the sand like an ostrich and then hope that none of this bad stuff is happening to you. Or you can be, proactive and say, you know what, I need to seek guidance early in the process to try to get a plan together to give myself the best opportunity to try to be victorious. And I will tell you that when it comes to litigation, if you give somebody some sort of, heads up and some planning, it can go a lot different, can't it, Brian?
It absolutely can. It's also obviously more cost efficient. I mean, at this point, rush service will have to be paid for everything. And anything done in a rush is never done as perfect as we would like it to be done, and it always comes with extra costs. So, yeah, the folks who are the wisest come seeking help, either before a notice of default ever hits or at the very latest once that notice of default records. I'm sure anybody who's been in the real estate game who's listening, and for those of you who aren't, when that notice of default hits, you're only 90 days away from a lot of trouble with your bank. You've only got 3 months to kiss and make up with them somehow, or you're potentially looking at a notice of sale. The notice of sale only gives you 20 days notice about your property. So, drop dead total, you've got about 3 months, 3 weeks maybe from the time that notice of default hits. And you could have, UD papers on your door throwing you out of your own home. So take it seriously, get in the fight early, get to an expert like Michael who can possibly save your day with a loan modification and keep you out of the litigation. But either way, whether it's a combined effort or whether you're sure you want to go straight to litigation or you're confident you've got a rock solid loan mod case, get in the game early, get to experts, get some help. And, if you get a raw deal, be aware that Andrews Law Group's out there and we're happy to help. And as Michael said, my website's briancandrews.com. But I always recommend to exhaust every effort to get a loan modification before you turn to a litigation option.
Well, and then another thing I want to talk about, because I'm sure if you're in distress right now, if you're listening to this show right now, whether you're driving or sitting in your home, I'm sure if you go to your mailbox, if you've received a notice of default like Brian, you probably got 5,000 letters and 5,000 communications with everybody promising you leprechauns and unicorn and pots of gold and everything's going to be hunky-dory. Well, that's not reality, people. Let me just tell you that. Reality is not pretty. It's a difficult fight, and anybody who makes it seem like it's easy, you need to shy away from, because it's not easy. And the other thing you need to make sure is that you're getting somebody who has a lot of experience, and you're actually dealing with a real attorney. You do not know how many calls every week I get from people who say, "Well, I was working with this law group, and and now everything's going to hell." And I'm like, "Well, did you ever talk to the attorney?" "Well, they would never let me actually speak to the attorney." Well, that's probably because they don't even have an attorney there. They probably using somebody's license. So vet your people too. Vet the people who are going to help you. And that's what I want to talk about. Brian C. Andrews, briancandrews.com. He has a lot of experience litigating against banks. How long have you been litigating against banks?
Oh, I started this right in the 2008 crisis. I was really blessed to meet a man whose name I don't mind dropping on the show. His name is George Mantor, Mantor. And George is a great soldier in this fight. And he brought me a client or two and acted as my mentor. George was one of the people that was writing about this before it ever happened. And heck, if anything, George is pounding the sand now, wondering why he's not the star of that movie, The Big Short, where you see the gentleman who was wise enough to see this coming and who bet against it and made millions and billions of dollars. But I learned, to answer your question, I learned this early on. I learned it just as it was happening, and I've read every book and every treatise and every case that's ever been filed and every appeal case. And I'm a big student of it. I consider myself an activist. It's why I stay in the fight. A lot of lawyers have shied away from this fight, but it's one that needs fighting.
It's kind of, one of the reasons why I like Brian a lot is because, like him, I've been in the trenches since the beginning. We have been dealing with lenders in different capacities and different ways. We use different methodologies to try to cure our help our clients, but we have both been fighting the same battle since the very beginning. We're kind of like one of those war movies. You go to watch one of those war movies and there's two sergeants. There's one that's all, fresh and clean right from boot camp, and you see the other guy, he's got like scars on the side of his face. He's all gritty and he's like, not super friendly, but he's been there 1,000 times. That's us. Believe me, as a new recruit, which sergeant do you want to be with? You know what I'm saying? You want to be with the guy who's freshly clean, right? Or you want to be the guy who's grizzled, who's been in the trenches for a long time? And that's what Brian is. Brian is one of those sergeants there.
Well, bless you and thank you. And it reminds me back to what you were saying a minute ago about all the letters that you'll get as soon as you fall into notice of default, and be extra wary. There are some good soldiers out there who might be in the habit of sending out solicitation letters, but I find it to be the great exception to the rule. 9 out of 10, maybe 99 out of 100 of those letters you're going to get is somebody who's got a system set up that's really designed to generate income for their law firm. It's not designed to do a house-by-house fight like we're doing for our clients. Every case needs a customized complaint. Half these guys are selling you just a check the box or fill in the blank or mass filing type complaint. One size fits all, maybe is a better way to put it. So as Michael stressed, look into these people. If you find a good one, bless your heart. There's very few people who mean well, who are in this fight on the side of the homeowners. There's dozens of people who see this wave and this dispute and who are manipulating it to make profits for their business. But so anyway, buyer beware.
Well, I've had the pleasure of actually seeing Brian in action, and let me tell you something. I mean, I saw him in this case, and the judge kept trying to tell him to not talk about what he wanted to talk about. He kept talking about it anyway. He was waving papers in the judge's face, saying, "Judge, you got to listen to me. You got to listen to me." The judge kept saying, "Put that down, put that down." Finally, after probably saying it 10 times, the judge took him back behind in quarters and, away from the rest of us, came back out and basically ruled in Brian's favor. And I thought that was the funniest thing because she's trying to shut him down. So anybody out there, I want to, remind you, if you're in need of any type of litigation, especially bank litigation, Brian Andrews at briancandrews.com is your man. Brian, thank you for coming in today. I really appreciate you taking time. I know you were rushed today, but thanks a lot for taking the time to join us today.
It's my great pleasure. The firm is the Andrews Law Group. My name is Brian Andrews. I really appreciate being a guest today, Michael. Thank you.
Well, thank you. And I want to thank everyone for listening to the Michael Gaddis Show today. As you know, I am Michael Gaddis from michaelgaddis.com and frontierloangroup.com. I am serving all of your real estate and mortgage needs. You can always contact me via my websites, or you could call 760-692-5950. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you again next Wednesday night at 8 p.m.